Okay, hello, welcome to everybody to this webinar on the GDPR cluster projects. This is Camillo Del Prete speaking. I am from Matic Mind, an Italian IT company. We participate to the project, Defend project. This is one of the projects of the GDPR cluster. The other projects, as you can see here on the picture, are BPR for GDPR, Papaya, PDP4E, Poseidon, and Smooth. We arranged this webinar within the Cybersecurity Month initiative that is sponsored by ENISA and the European Commission. As you may already know, the Cybersecurity Month happens every October since some years. And it is a sort of incubator of several events happening in Europe on cybersecurity. These events are aimed to promote cybersecurity among European citizens and organizations. I reported on this slide the official definition you can find on their site. The GDPR cluster projects are collaborating since a couple of years. First time we physically met was in Brussels on March 2019, where we had a full-day meeting. We planned to have another physical meeting this year in Lisbon during the annual Privacy Forum, but unfortunately, as everybody can understand, due to the global COVID emergency, we had to switch to a virtual meeting, and we will have this full-day meeting in November. And this meeting will be mainly focused on technical aspects of our projects. And the main objective will be looking for synergies in future developments or improvements of our current results. During last 2 years, we had several calls, mainly related to common dissemination activities like the current webinar. Anyway, let's have a look at the agenda for today. We'll spend a couple of hours together. First time in the agenda is the GDPR cluster overview that I've already started. Then each project will have a 15-minute slot to have a very short presentation of their projects and mainly to show the results of their work. Yeah, we understand that such a short time is not enough for a full demonstration of what was realized, but it could be a good starting point. We'll provide contacts, websites, social media links from each project. So if anybody is interested in exploring specific project results, you have different channels to approach each project. By the way, all the slides of the projects will show. They are also downloadable from this WebEx event. And these slides include the contacts information. Anyway, in any case, in case you miss them, just Google the name of the project and the word European project, and you should get immediately the right link to the project website. At the end of the project presentations, we'll have a Q&A session. You can write your questions in the QA box you find on the WebEx page whenever you want during the presentation. We will pick them up during the final discussion. Okay, back to the introduction. Now we will see the main joint activities implemented or still ongoing by the cluster so far. Let's start with the joint paper. We published an article for the Springer Nature Computer Science. The article is Protecting Citizens' Personal Data and Privacy, a joint effort from GDPR European Cluster Research Projects. The paper is available to be downloaded from this WebEx event. But again, if you miss it, you can easily find it on internet by typing GDPR cluster paper. Okay, let me share with you a table from this article where we summarized for each project the GDPR challenges we covered. Actually, we are still working on these features. By the way, in our next meeting that I mentioned before, we will have in November, we will explore in detail common and alternative approaches by each project for the teams highlighted here in this on this table. About collaborations we had during this period, I think some of you already know the PIA tool. That is an open source application that helps to evaluate risks through a privacy impact assessment. It comes from the French Independent Authority for Privacy, the CNIL. Both Papaya and Defend projects included the PIA tool in their solutions, and both projects made enhancements to this tool. Then Papaya and Defend shared the code developed, so getting advantage from each other. Another collaboration I want to mention is the Poseidon and Papaya that are still working on a common use case. Apart from direct collaborations, the cluster was also the place where each project has the opportunity to share their initiatives, like the CWA. CWA stands for CEN Workshop Agreement. CEN is an European organization about standards. The CEN Workshop Agreement was promoted by Smooth. It is an ongoing initiative with the objective to define the guidelines for microenterprises GDPR compliance. Our cluster had the opportunity to be involved, so some members of the other projects, apart from Smooth, are participating to the initiative, joining meetings and workshops. Another initiative we are discussing is related to a focus group on children privacy. Gabriel from Technalia, PDP4E, is leading it. Open discussions on GDPR privacy-related topics. For example, even though it is out of scope of each project, we included in agenda for our next full day meeting the impact of the current European legislation on the national COVID applications. Well, this was a very quick overview of the cluster. Now let's start with the demonstrations of the results of each project. I'm pleased to introduce you now the BPR for GDPR project. Okay, let me give you the control of the presentation. Of the presentation environment. Welcome to Renata Orhan. Okay, now
the floor to Samuel.
Yeah, to Samuel. Okay, from PDP4E.
Thank you for your patience and attending to.
Hello, thank you, and thank you all for attending. My name is Samuel Martin. I'm the scientific and technical lead of PDP4E. I come from Universidad Politécnica de Madrid, UPM. PDP4E is short for Privacy and Data Protection for Engineering or for Engineers, and that's because this is our target, the target of our project, are engineers. Why? Because we were wondering whether GDPR should affect engineers, because it's usually addressed only from the perspective of lawyers or managers. And well, the short answer is yes, it should be addressed by engineers, and we are not the only ones who think that. You can see here several captures from blogs, from engineering magazines, which basically read that even developers, individual coders, will need to be concerned by GDPR. So this is true, but the fact is that what engineers can find in the market is not something that is addressing engineers. They can find the law, the big book of the GDPR. They can also find some nice privacy by design principles, but they are not operational. They are just principles that you should follow, but you aren't told how to follow them. Then they can also find some privacy-enhancing technologies, which are also great, but they do not provide systematic recipes to be applicable directly by engineers. And there are also tools, but these tools with these nice charts are mostly targeting managers. They are not integrated within the practice and the usual tools that engineers employ. So the ones that appear to the right-hand side, because engineers want to use models, diagrams, backlog items, assurance cases, risk meters. They want to use engineering tools. And this is where PDP4E comes to answer that need, but by integrating the existing privacy and data protection methods that come from the state of the art, which are great, but were not directly applicable by engineers. So integrating them within the existing software and system engineering disciplines, enriching them, enriching the tools, the methods that already existed with engineering, with privacy engineering features. In particular, we are producing methodologies that integrate privacy and data protection engineering activities, artifacts, roles within the existing methods. We're also producing tools that you will be able to see in the next presentations, also knowledge bases that somehow encapsulate the wisdom of the privacy and data protection engineering community. And we're also producing demonstrators for some scenarios, for some use cases. And quite importantly, we have just launched a community together with the Activist Foundation on privacy and trustworthiness engineering, privacy data protection and trustworthiness engineering to increase the outreach of our results. We are addressing 4 engineering disciplines, namely requirements engineering, model-driven design, assurance and certification, and risk management, where we think that privacy and data protection practice could be most relevant. And we are creating demonstrators for two areas, which are smart grid and connected vehicle. As we said, we have leveraged the existing background. This cloud of logos and words is just to show that we are creating a lot of tools and we are improving a lot of tools and a lot of methods. All these already existed, and we are doing is integrating them, improving them, adding privacy and data protection features from one to tools or to existing tools from the others. What we are following is a mostly model-driven engineering-based approach. This tries to capture what model-driven engineering means. Same as physical models were somehow miniature working representations of large full-size machines that you could test, that you could evaluate. Models in software engineering or in systems engineering also try to create representations that somehow abstract the internals of a system, and where you can also test the models, you can evaluate the models against specifications, you can process the models, you can transform the model, so it's not just diagrams, even though they are mostly expressed through diagrams. With all that set of tools that we have created, we are creating a tool set, and this tries to capture our approach. We are not producing a single monolithic product, but just a set of tools that you can use one after the other, same as you would use maybe a screwdriver and a hammer when you are doing do-it-yourself for home improvement or as a hobby or professionally. You don't plug a screwdriver on the hammer, but you use one after the other, and there are some integration from a functional perspective. From this functional integration, this summarizes the tools that we are creating in our project and the methods that we are creating in our project. Now you will see parts of the tools for risk management here and for assurance, but I would also like to take the opportunity to mention that the tools that we have for requirements engineering here create specific requirements from projects departing from generic privacy method requirements. And here we also have model-driven design, which applies privacy techniques, privacy patterns to existing system models to analyze them and to transform it so as to make the system that you are creating from the model more compliant to privacy and data protection. These are the contact details of our project that you will be able also to find on the slides and after on the chat. And without any further ado, I'm now giving the floor to Victor Montes, who will present you some of the tools that we have in our project, and then you will see others presented by Alejandra. So, Victor, the floor is yours. Victor, I think you're muted.
Okay, now, sorry for that. So I was saying just thank you, Samuel, and I was explaining that we are creating a continuous risk management tool that helps engineers to manage risks related to privacy and to mitigate them through treatments and controls, allowing for continuous control of their implementation. So we are assuming that the system is going to be defined through one or more data flow diagrams with a typical component, so the process, the data store, the entity, the data flow, and then we are going to provide an automated vulnerability detection on top of your data flow diagram. So for that, you can not only export or create the data flow diagrams in the tool, but by applying this vulnerability detector, and that's what you will see in the list of assets. You can see the amounts of vulnerabilities, the risks related to these vulnerabilities, and even treatments. This is all developed through knowledge bases that we have developed in the PDP4E project. And this detection is based on this questionnaire that I'm showing to you, where you get a set of questions related to each of the components in the data flow diagram. So basically, by answering to these questions, or as many as you can, you are basically able to understand the relevance of a particular vulnerability. So in the background, the engine is accepting or discarding vulnerabilities according to the answers to these questions. And then with that, you always recalculate the vulnerabilities of a particular risk. You can see these vulnerabilities and the associated risk, and then you can go to the analysis. When you analyze each of those assets or those components in the data flow diagram, you have 3 steps which basically are implementing a methodology that we created in the project. First, you analyze the vulnerabilities. You can see all of them, and you can see whether they are they come from the Lindum framework, or they are coming, for instance, from Stride. For every vulnerability, you are able to accept them or confirm that they are potential vulnerabilities in your system, or reject them, in which case you will need to provide a reason, because we are going to be able to generate a report based on the activity that you've done in our platform. You can, of course, modify the vulnerabilities and even manually add new vulnerabilities. So it's not those in the knowledge base, but the user can provide user-defined vulnerabilities. From those, you automatically get a proposal of potential risks with the typical likelihood and impact for each of the risks. And then, again, you can edit those risks or create new ones, but typically what you see is the description, what vulnerabilities are associated to this risk, and you can assess the risks from a likelihood and impact perspective. We have implemented the OWASP framework for rating risks, and because it was not focused on privacy, but mainly on security, we have extended, if you see the 3rd column is part of the contribution of the PDP4E project, we have extended the impact assessment, taking into account privacy-related aspects. Once you do this, then you can basically add treatments. One of the novelties of this tool is that you can not only define treatments, but you can also monitor the implementation of those treatments. So apart from a name and a description, you can basically say what type of treatment this is, and you can connect this, for instance, to tools like Jira and connect it to Jira issues or Git in the repository in such a way that as the development of your system goes on, you can monitor, for instance, in real time, the execution of the implementation of those treatments, and therefore you know from when you can assume that they are active. Then you can create these treatments, and once you accept all these treatments, automatically you can, well, first of all, before the treatments, you can also roam the risks, so decide whether they are resolved they are still owned, accepted, or mitigated, and this helps you in the evaluation of risks. And then when you go to treatments, you can see the particular status of each of those treatments in real time as they evolve, as I said before. We are also implementing a Kanban. This is under construction, but basically allows for the collaboration of different stakeholders to control the risk management process. And finally, we have also created a mapping between the Lindun categories, the Lindun threats, and the assets that you want to protect from a GDPR perspective, which are the principles and the subject rights. So this is still, again, under construction, but we are trying to show how the engineering activities have an impact and pose risks into GDPR principles and subject rights. And this way you have let's say, a control panel for GDPR. So I think that's basically it. Thank you very much. And let me just pass the floor to Alejandra so that she can show us another tool of PDP4E. Let's see if I find her. Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Can you see the screen? So I'm Alejandra Ruiz. I'm working in PDP4E project in the area related to assurance, which I plan to show you around now. The main ideas I expect you to understand after this talk are what is assurance, which is something sometimes missed, what is its role in GDPR, and what can the tools from PDP4E do in relation with assurance. So what is assurance? According to NIST, assurance is based on the confidence that the system properties, which are integrity, availability, and accountability, are not are met, which means that the system should perform correctly no matter what. So in case of unintentional errors, the system will resist the attack and continue performing correctly. When dealing with GDPR, assurance is in close connection with the following principles, which are accountability and transparency. To comply with GDPR, it is not enough to behave well. You also need to prove it. And to do so, we need to demonstrate that the good behavior generates trust, and it's crucial to collect evidences for such demonstration. Assurance supports the existence of a view of the system status with respect to compliance and how it has been reached. So you see, we have quite a lot of things to deal with GDPR. PDP4E takes assurance as a core concept, and we contribute by providing a regulatory framework, reusable arguments, and a method to demonstrate compliance. Let's see how these contributions are materialized on the OpenThread tool. This is an open source tool coming from previous research projects, but mainly has been applied for safety. Now it has been adapted for privacy in general, and more specifically for GDPR compliance. So how can GDPR be translated into operational work items and activities for the development of a project? So this is a video where we can see our tool. Here it's model the article 35. We have here some activities with some artifacts or documentation that we need to put as an input, and documents to have as an output, the role, which is the other activity that should be done later on with sub-activities. This is, as I said, it's a part of one of the articles of GDPR. So we actually have modeled the GDPR, and it's more understandable for the developer perspective. It's more easy to see activities, things that come as an input and things that come as an output. Again, how do we have a method to systematic capture and traceability of evidences, and how can we track that evidence evolution? So this is again our tool. Here we have what we call the evidence model. Here we have different evidences that we are using. So we said that we need for compliance 2 of them. The document, the artifact that we are using, we can collect who has done it, when. We can even connect it with the actual document that is there and where it is, so we can see it. We can also make an evaluation. So we can define our criteria. We can define, for example, in this case, it was quite fast, isn't it? We defined the criteria, which in this case was the completeness, and see and check and make this evaluation. We can make evaluation on different criteria, so we can see how we are going. And also, we need a method to provide a clear argumentation, a clear justification about compliance. We can do it like that, make a big test, which for the auditor's perspective, it could be quite tricky. We need to read through it, but it's much fun with pictures. This is a graphical notation. It's a standardized notation. It's called GSN, goal structuring notation. It actually is the same text. And if you like Boolean logic, this is how it works. I can say that this is true if these things are true. And everything, I mean, I can only say that this claim is true if I have here an evidence supporting this. So in the end, it's kind of a Boolean. I cannot say that this is true if this and these are true. And here I have all the collection of evidences that I'm using, and I can know what is it for. My justification is not unfold. I have here all my evidences here. Again, the tool support on that. This is one. Is the same information, but we are actually doing patterns, so you can reuse the way of argument, the way someone has argument that has worked well, and make it even more different. This is, for example, for a compliance perspective, so how we are compiling with one of the questions of the GDPR. So you know what are the things I need to check about, to argue about. And well, whenever we go for compliance and we have assessors, we always need some reports, some documents to show. Okay, we have identified three types of reports. One, we call it the compliance accountability summary. It contains the summary of the status at that point of the development of the different artifacts and activities that have been performed. It's looks like that. It's a Word document where I can put all these things. Oops. The other could be the evidences accountability traces report. It details the information extracted for evidences, so I can all the evidences I've get, I can put it here for traces. And the assurance case, as I said, we can make it printable and focus on specific parts of it, so it can be included. So we have more or less covered everything. If you have any questions, just let me know, and I think I will pass the information. I think Samuel, do you want to show the contacts of the project? Or shall I pass to the next project?
I have just pasted the contacts on the chat to the attendees so that they can find them. You can give the floor to the next project. Thank you, Alejandra and Victor.
Okay. So our next
box about Q&A. So I suppose everything was clear. Okay, let me thank everybody, both panelists and participants. We'll publish this webinar on each project website and or the social media channels. Okay, thanks again. Have a nice day to everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
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 Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Have a nice day.
Bye.